Hi folks, Pat Healy here for the Laker News. I'm here with Liberal candidate for Waverley-Fall River-Beaver Bank, Elizabeth Booth. Elizabeth, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi everybody. So I've lived in Fall River, actually just up the street here in Fall River Village for the last 4.5 years. I was working as a project manager for a number of years before moving here. And since I moved here, I've been doing a lot of work as an active volunteer in the community, in the Lions Club and various other areas. And that's kind of what prompted me to start looking at exploring other avenues to help out the nonprofits in the area.
Okay, that's great. What are the top 3 concerns you are hearing from residents in Waverley-Fall River-Beaver Bank, and how would you address them if elected as MLA?
Oh, thanks, Pat. So the top 3 are certainly affordability, housing and healthcare, and that's resonating across the entire district. And from an affordability perspective, I know from the Liberal Party platform, there's a lot in there about reducing income tax and the tax burden and the property tax side of things. And I certainly see a need for that in our area. From a housing perspective, there's a couple of things on the housing side of things. There's the land lease communities that need that tenancy enforcement unit to make sure, both from a landlord and from a tenant perspective, everybody is safe and feels secure in their surroundings. But there's also the need for more affordable housing, so getting the right housing in the right place with the right infrastructure. And then from a healthcare perspective, I've been hearing a lot about, pharmacists and healthcare workers and doctors, everybody in the healthcare system being overworked, working extended hours to make up for the staff shortages. So what I see we need in the area is a way to bring more people into the system in the healthcare profession. So things like if folks come here internationally, say they come from Ukraine, why do they need to wait 3 years to pick up a pharmacist that's working? Let's look at ways of shortening that so we can get more people working in the healthcare to reduce that burden.
Okay, that's great. This question has been submitted to us by the Nova Scotia Association of Realtors. Nova Scotians want to own homes, but it is getting increasingly difficult to do so. What will you do to make it easier for local families to be able to buy homes in our community?
Okay. Thanks again, Pat. These are really good questions. So there's a couple of things in the newly released Liberal platform that will certainly help folks that are either entering the homeowners market or looking to buy, to move. So things like they're going to be looking at the property tax setup. It certainly isn't a favorable setup for folks in the middle income. We're going to look at not requiring the land lease deed transfer tax. And again, that'll help folks that are entering into the housing home ownership. And so there's a number of things around that are going to make it less expensive for people to buy new homes. And we're just going to wait for the truck to go by. And for seniors to be able to downsize and stay within the area. So those are the kinds of things that I would definitely support going forward for our area.
All right. How do you plan to address the barriers women face in accessing healthcare, including issues with wait times and availability of specialists in fields like gynecology?
So I can certainly relate to some of those challenges. And here I am 4 years living here, and I still don't have a family doctor. And I do have experienced some challenges myself with getting access to women-centered healthcare. So it was nice to see in the Liberal platform about having a minister for women's health. And I think we need to really make sure when we talk about collaborative care centers that they include things that are more rounded for the various aspects of women's health. Things like iron transfusion clinics and other items like that. So I'm going to be pushing for that when we have the collaborative care centers being proposed in our area.
In Waverley-Fall River-Beaver Bank and areas outwards, there are many commuters going to work in Halifax and taking their own vehicles because transit just isn't an option or doesn't exist. How would you, as an MLA, work with the municipal government to make transit from these areas a priority if elected?
So there's an example of where collaboration with the municipality would be an absolute must, because the municipality have got the responsibility for, the transit systems, like if we were to have the buses coming into HRM. So where we would need to work with them is how we can actually integrate in the rural areas to bring the transit closer to them, so that they don't need to be driving their car to actually access the bus lots. And it's that kind of collaboration that I'd be working with the municipality and our councillor Kathy Deagle-Gammon.
Okay. Considering the rapid growth in Waverley-Fall River and Beaver Bank and HRM in general, it is imperative to ensure that infrastructure, transportation, hospitals, schools, roadways are adequately developed to meet the increasing demands. If elected, what will you do to attempt to stay ahead of this ongoing problem?
So definitely see that with housing being proposed in areas where there isn't sufficient infrastructure. We see it all around us. I've seen it throughout the entire district. And it's something where we need to prioritize where the developments are going, so that we have a plan for the infrastructures where they're going in. So there's examples like throughout Beaver Bank where, the housing has been progressing, but we don't have the connectors in place, like the Margeson connector, for example, to reduce the traffic and to increase the options for people to get in and out of the area. So that would be an example of where we want to prioritize the findings from the Joint Regional Task Force on things like building those connectors to the 102. So that's a Beaver Bank example. And then we've also got opportunities to prioritize developments where we've got plans for infrastructure going in place, and put the others a little bit later down the list until we have a plan for infrastructure.
The need for housing is increasing, so it's important to have homes for everyone. But with the increased climate crisis and global warming, what would you, as an MLA, do about the increased developments that are causing deforestation, infilling of oceans and wetlands, and overall destruction of the natural habitat happening in the riding and Nova Scotia?
So it's definitely a balance between housing need for affordable housing and the impact on our environment. And I think we need to be carefully choosing the sites that we're going to be putting in the affordable housing, and how we're doing that, and how we're integrating with the environmental needs of the area. So for an area such as, where we're going to have to put in a septic system perhaps, well, there's ways of putting in a septic system design that has minimal impact on the environment and still keeps the green space, keeps the wetlands around the area, and that kind of. I think we need to think of the whole picture when we're looking at affordable housing, not just putting in a whole bunch of housing and obliterating the area to make room for it. I think there's a way that we can accommodate both.
All right. Beaver Bank was split into two ridings and is now together. What can you do to work on making better community connections for Beaver Bank with Fall River and Waverley?
So, oddly enough, I've already started doing that through the last 3 to 4 years, just with the Caluce Festival in itself, where we've worked with Lyle Mailman and other Beaver Bank folks on integrating our parades, and I'm working on community projects as well in Beaver Bank and bringing Fall River people in on it. So it's a case of building the awareness of what we can do together, because there's a lot of integration that we can do across the entire borders, and the same between Waverley and Fall River and into Wellington. There's a lot of things that we can do collectively as a community and come together to work on things that benefit the whole district and not just certain areas.
All right, and the last question. Why should residents cast a ballot for you in the election?
Well, point number one, I will stand up for the community, and I've done that in the past, where I've issued ombudsman complaints over processes that didn't seem to be followed properly for certain neighborhoods. And I'm prepared to stand up, even if it's, against the general party line, so to speak. And it's certainly something that means a lot to me, because I feel it's important to stand up for what's right. And it may not be a popular opinion all the time, but I feel the need to do that and be visible and be accessible to everybody in the district.
Well, thank you very much for taking some time out of campaigning for the interview with us today.
Oh, absolutely no problem. Thanks for asking the good questions, Pat. Appreciate it.
Thank you to Joanne Poulin of eXp Realty for sponsoring this video interview. Pat Healy for the Laker News at Jamison Park in Fall River.